It's that time of the month, mostly. I don't even know what to do at this point. Welcome to the Epic Podcast. My name's Matt.
I'm Jen.
I'm Austin.
I'm Joni.
I'm Christina.
And I'm David. And it's time for Mostly Monthly, where we're going to catch up on recent happenings and fun things that we find going on, followed by an enlightening and, I don't know, time of sharing products that you will probably love if you go ahead and click on those affiliate links for us. So let's just dive right into it. What happened to Taylor Swift?
Well, last time we talked, I had brought her situation forward with her copyrights of her songs and how she was saying that she didn't have the opportunity to buy them, and we had this wonderful discussion. If you want to hear more on it, check the link below with last week's, or however we do that, months mostly. Anyways, the point I wanted to get to was literally the day after we posted that, an article came out saying that she had all the time in the world to purchase her music rights and that she chose not to and is making this big wah 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 deal about it. And I immediately was like, oh, we just talked about this and now we're going to sound like idiots. Or at least I'm going to sound like an idiot.
There we go.
Everyone on this podcast cares so greatly about this topic, right? And while I said, Taylor Swift, blah, 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 I kind of want to talk more about just media outlets in general and how it's just kind of a big scam of who do you believe, who do you not believe. Everyone has their bias. And I feel like amongst our group, we probably have a good conversation about that. But I don't know if other people do, or maybe a lot of people realize that the news outlets are scams and they don't listen to them, or maybe you guys with us have like, I listen to this person and they're the truth or the most unbiased. I don't know.
The quick answer is that you should listen to us and nobody else. So.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I even think that's inaccurate. I know you're joking, but if you're listening, I don't think that's because it's like, again, you're getting this sound pool of just like, there's 6 of us on this team, but we still kind of have all the same kind of mind process. Whereas when you listen to stuff that you don't necessarily believe, then you can strengthen your beliefs. But at the same time, if people are just making up crap and just, we're going to make this person look good and this person look bad, then there's really no point in thinking about those topics. But the bigger idea of what is the author's, this company's bias or angle, or what are they trying to basically tap into my brain to get me to think about something differently, or in a sense, it kind of feels like brainwash or manipulation of your thought process if you're not aware of it.
Sure. I mean, I know personally, I maybe I'm guilty, if that's the right term, but I definitely use Google News as kind of one of the feeds that I go to primarily. And I try to curate it as much as possible, guide it where I want it to go. But on a fun note, presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard is suing Google because she's saying that they're basically, I don't want to say censoring, I don't know what her word before was, but they're minimizing her presence on the internet. And I think that's a big thing. Like I really hope that there is some kind of like demonstrative data that shows that she's being suppressed. Like, because one, I enjoy her as a candidate and think that she has a lot to offer to the conversation, whether or not she's ultimately elected. But two, I mean, tech companies have so much power right now by just by being able to curate feeds, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Google, Google News, whatever. If you're not shown if you're only shown a snippet of the news, whether it's, hey, so-and-so wasn't able to purchase their music rights, and then you find out later, oh, they were totally able to, they just didn't until it was too late, and now they want to complain about the process. Like, I mean, these are, that story may have been out at the same time. It just wasn't, when you searched for it, wasn't available.
And I'm like, I don't know the end process of that, and I don't really care, but it just, the pieces and the way things are titled are intentionally written to pull at your heartstrings and to get you to be like, oh, curse them, without any
journalism's dead, though.
processes.
Realistically.
I'm curious what you guys think about that, if you've thought about that, and, you know, on a greater scale, our listeners, do you guys think that? And like,
I mean, I'm just going to keep chiming in here until somebody else goes. But like, having worked in the news arena as a military journalist, you have certain guidelines that you have to work by. Like, as a military journalist, I don't get the option to editorialize unless it's specifically an opinion piece. Very, gigantic header opinion. You have to stick to the facts, and that's what I think we at least kind of had the feel that we grew up with, like Walter Cronkite and whatnot. And then it seemed like, whether or not that was truly the case back then, not right now, it seems like they're not even trying to pass things off as unbiased. It's just like, come to us and we'll give you our take on the news, as opposed to somebody saying, hey, here's the actual news. Here's what's actually happening. You decide how you want to spin that.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like...
Well, I think there's kind of a reality to that every organization is going to have their bias. And I more appreciate the ones that are honest about that and say, look, we're a group of people that have this view of the world. We're going to report the news in a way that is in line with our view because that's the way we see it. And I think this is a direction that the world is going, is realizing that there are different points of view and people are going to react to them within their lens. And I don't know if you brought up just, Facebook and Google and all these things. And it just dawned on me that this is something that we're going to have to teach kids how to do. Like when we grew up, it was, well, this is the news. It's the news. But now it's not that way anymore. Now you get to pick what your news is. You get to pick how you spin the story. And kids are growing up in this place of what is true. It brings up a lot of questions.
Well, I think they don't even, kids don't even think what is true. They just, it's true. Like, they don't even question it until you say, hey, you know what? That's not something you should think about as true. Or,
well, other kids always know more than you do as their parent. I don't know if you've experienced that, but
I'm not at that stage in life. Well, we're teetering on one of them, but for the most part, they still.
Thankfully, our kids
stuff.
don't really feel that way, but there was a time when they were like, but so-and-so said, and I'm like, they don't know anything.
Right. Well, Joni, I don't necessarily disagree with your take that you appreciate people who are upfront with their bias. I don't have a huge problem with that particularly. What I have a huge problem with is when people are selective about what they share. Like, you can have your bias, but if you're pulling a snippet of a quote and then not making it easy to see the whole quote somewhere else, I have a problem with that. Because if you're intentionally distorting what somebody's saying, which happens all the freaking time, hey, let me take this quote out of context and make it really seem like Joe Schmo is a total jerk and racist and xenophobe, whatever. Like, fuck you.
Well,
but that's where I wonder if...
Case in point, the Trump hat kid with that American. I mean, that's ridiculous.
The smirk.
The smirk kid.
What are you referring to?
The kid in front of the Lincoln Memorial that got confronted by the Native American activist guy.
Oh,
and the kid just sat there and smirked.
Who has a reputation for doing that, and then he was just bullied. But
then everybody, they just pulled just one tiny bit of the clip of the video, and it showed it looked like, what was it, like the guy was trying to pass and the kid just stood there and kind of was mocking him or something like that, and everybody just flipped their lid.
Do you remember the part about when Trump found out he was the Mueller investigation was going forward, and the quote was, "I'm fucked," right? And that was all over the news. See, he knows it, but the rest of the quote is, "I'm fucked. No, everything I want to do is just going to be tied up in the dang investigation, and as a president, I'm not going to get anything done." Right? But so contextually, he was it had nothing to do with guilt, but they take it out of context. I've also got up in my, if I've got it up for those who can see the video. If you haven't seen the meme of the Wall Street Journal, two of the same date, the same journal, and depending on where it is in the country, one of the Trump softens his tone, and the other one says Trump talks tough on the wall.
Same picture.
Same journal, same newspaper, same article, same everything, but based on where it was circulated in the country, they chose a different headline. And that happens daily.
Well, that happens on like YouTube videos and articles and stuff. You A/B test headlines and see what works better. So it's going to show up differently for different people. I didn't realize they did it in paper and printed news.
Certainly, and I think when you have large tech companies, and I'm poking at them because they have literally the platform for it, curating timelines for people, curating what they see. I mean, sure, Twitter gives you the option to now have the latest things, the latest tweets pop up first, but it always defaults back to their curated preference for what they're going to show you, not necessarily for the people you follow, what they post, like the latest postings. Facebook's the same way. They know exactly what gets the clicks, and they want to keep you there as long as possible. Consequences be damned. They want to keep you on the site because that generates ad revenue. Mm-hmm. And so you have people making decisions on, in favor of money and saying, it's questionable ethics. I mean, I still laugh at the idea of Google's thing, like, don't be evil, and like where the evil line is at. And it's that line's blurry at best nowadays, if not just thoroughly trampled.
Well, that's something I wondered with the news that I've wondered for a long time, is how much is intentional and how much is just their view of the world. Because there's a whole lot of people that have the complete opposite view of the world that I do. And I can sit there and say that they're wrong, but then to look at them and say they're purposefully manipulating the facts. I do believe it happens for sure, because you see like the clips on YouTube of all the news organizations using the same headline, using the same verbiage over and over and over. You're like, okay, well, this is obviously scripted. This is obviously planned. This is obviously presented. But how much of it is just personal opinion and view versus actual manipulation? I guess if it comes down to sales and viewership, then it does come down to manipulation.
That's kind of an interesting question because of the amount of people in the media that were so flabbergasted when Trump got elected.
Mm.
So I mean, there might be, you might have a point there in the sense that they might just be so engrossed in their own point of view that they don't really see any other point of views. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't know.
Because so many people were shocked by that, and I wasn't surprised by it, but so many people were just completely shocked by him winning.
Would you guys hear about the hearing? It was a hearing on Capitol Hill. I'm trying to find the date of it. Research psychologist Robert Epstein joined Tucker Carlson on Tuesday night. They talked. I can't remember the date. But anyways, it was on Capitol Hill where he testifies that Google and their search terms manipulated anywhere from 2.6 to 10 million votes towards Hillary just by filtering their searches. And that's not conspiracy, although I did originally learn about it from QAnon. It's not. I mean, it's articles. It's on Zero Hedge. It's on. I mean, it was Capitol Hill testimony.
Did they mention how they quantified that, or is it just like that was the?
I'm sure they. Yeah, I mean, it's not just some. Like again, I mean, it's Capitol Hill testimony, so it's going to be legit. Just I haven't done a deep dive, but.
So that was. Were you saying like manipulating poll results to make it seem like
manipulating search results for like I know for one of the big things was like any positive of news of Trump was buried in 20, 30 pages of results deep. Anything negative was at the top and reverse for Hillary. So anything good for Hillary was top results. Any negative conspiracies were really buried, if not showed at all.
And someone actually has to plug those in. So yes. there is a manipulation there.
But Russia.
Around that.
Have you guys ever heard of Veritas, the Veritas Project?
Yeah.
Yes.
Truth and Media guys. They just did a whole thing that came out last month, I think, about Google. And
are they boycotting Google? Or are they, like?
I think so, but I know they didn't want Google, they didn't want Pinterest, and basically recorded definitive statements by top executives to manipulate search results and and point people towards more liberal, progressive candidates and news.
Well.
So
I
we're
don't
just
believe it.
conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm fascinated that this started with a conversation about Taylor Swift.
I was thinking the same thing. I did not
You're
anticipate
welcome.
this going. Yeah, good job. Good job.
Crushed it.
I feel like I'm going to fall flat here in a second when I say, a whole lot's happening in the crypto arena. I know, we've talked about cryptocurrency in the past and just, blockchain happenings, and it's a pretty exciting time for people as far as price action's been going recently. Maybe not so much in the last month or so because things have been going down a bit, but the idea, there's so much more happening than price right now. There are so many big players entering the market. And if you watch the charts, you can see things are being manipulated. Like but it's both ways. It's manipulated up and manipulated down. Just people trying to get more of that cryptocurrency for themselves. But in the recent past, we've had Fidelity, who's manages a lot of people's retirements and their investments. They recently became capable of being custodians for cryptocurrency, which means that basically they can handle it. So people that were scared of getting into cryptocurrency because the idea of being their own bank wasn't alluring, they still wanted that third party to kind of handle things and make it safer for them. Well, they have an option now in Fidelity, and they can actually just throw their retirements into that stuff if they want to. So that's a big deal. And then, I do know that sometimes people in the crypto community don't get excited about people outside the crypto community, like doing, things that they've been wanting to do themselves. However, Bakkt, which is an organization that was started by the people who own and run the New York Stock Exchange, a group called ICE. Bakkt is now basically becoming the New York Stock Exchange for cryptocurrencies. And they just, I think in the last week, it's all kind of blurring together right now, launched Bakkt for basically like the elite. They're basically, they put out their testing template. I think they're still planning to be up and running for everybody by September. But as far like if you can imagine being like an institutional investor or a hedge fund manager, the idea of going into some uncharted like cryptocurrency company ran exchange is less exciting than people who run the New York Stock Exchange. An exchange that they might be running is far more alluring in the sense that that what you're getting with the New York Stock Exchange, you're getting in this. So the idea that institutions are, institutions has been like the call for like the last year while prices were just dropping. Well, it's finally coming out, and it's an extremely exciting time. Like there's so much more happening right now. It's funny because like China has been on there, has been on a kick of like, well, we're going to ban Bitcoin. Nope, Bitcoin's good again. Nope, ban Bitcoin. It's good again. Like China's putting out rankings for which cryptocurrencies are the best now based off technology and user bases and whatnot. Like it's a really interesting time. Like I follow a few different people on YouTube that just try to get the news out, and like the range of news that happens is so wild, and it's fun to watch how things are connected to price, how news is connected to price, whether the timing of it, whatever. But if you haven't yet got involved, I encourage you to just get your toe wet and get a feel for what things feel like on the cryptocurrency side of things. Like, because it's not, you don't want to try to get in the game when everybody else is trying to get in the game. The system is still young. It's still something that when everybody's trying to rush in at once, there's a line. So you want to get in before the line's there and then just be able to do what you want once, whenever you want to do it. So that means, finding an exchange that you can trust and getting your, as a U.S. citizen anyways, you have to have like, cryptocurrency exchanges are required to kind of follow U.S. banking regulations, like the know your customer regulations. There's back in the day, you just had to have like an email address and a password and a bank account that you could link to. Whereas now, like you have to have like driver's license and that kind of stuff. Some kind of photo identification goes into this whole thing. Makes it less anonymous, but also makes it more like trustworthy and whatnot. However, your views on it may vary. But have you guys been paying attention to this at all? Or am I just monologuing and we're going on to the next topic?
I had a couple questions for you, actually, as you were talking. one of the things that popped in my head was I wonder if this is akin to the whole .com bubble.
Sure.
That it was this major movement, this major thing, and like everyone was getting into it. Like I feel like even private companies now are starting their own cryptocurrency and getting into this. And I'm not in it very much at all. So what is your feelers? Do you feel like this is something that is going to everyone get into it and then it's going to collapse and then, the top people are going to come out and it's going to be an everyday way of life? And then my other question was, how is this becoming an everyday way of life for your average person? Because I'm starting to see, Bitcoin is starting to become more common knowledge, but a lot of people I talk to still don't have any understanding of cryptocurrency.
Sure. So a lot of people make that comparison to the .com bubble. They just made it a year ago when Bitcoin, spiked up to $20,000 per Bitcoin. And then it's funny because like Andreas Antonopoulos, I can't remember what the timing of his comment was, but somebody asked him if it was a bubble. He's like, of course it's a bubble. People are like, oh, Andreas Antonopoulos is like a huge speaker in the Bitcoin community. Like he goes from country to country to country. Every time he speaks, basically just sharing the word of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, of blockchain, people are like, can you please do this in my country? And he's a very talented speaker. He does it, he articulates the ideas of it very well. But he said, of course it's a bubble. And so people are like, oh my gosh, he's saying this. And then, inevitably, because there was a crazy frenzy, the bubble popped, as bubbles tend to do. And, Bitcoin went from $20,000 down to about $3,200. That's a significant popping. Mm-hmm. But, that popping is healthy. Like it allows things to return to normal. It weeded out a lot of scams. Like a lot of things came to light. A lot of people were just in it for the cash grab. It truly was a Wild West scenario. And then, so it weeds out these bad actors. It's funny because now that the price has been going up, scammers are starting to return to the space again, slowly but surely. The idea of a free Bitcoin giveaway or free ETH giveaway, just give me your account. Like people fall for that stuff still. So, but that stuff's beginning to return because price is starting to go back up. And I don't know, as far as the everyday, the average person beginning to use this kind of thing, it truly depends on where you are. Going back to Andreas Antonopoulos, I think he recently said, Bitcoin isn't for millionaires. Like Warren Buffett was saying, like, I don't need Bitcoin. Well, of course he doesn't need Bitcoin. He's a billionaire.
Doesn't need anything.
That has access to any banking product he could ever want. All right. There's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that don't have access to a bank, period. And Bitcoin is a savior for them. You think about the people that are in Venezuela right now. We constantly hear about the hyperinflation that's happening to their currency. How basically, if a loaf of bread costs $1 now, next week it costs $10. Can you imagine how shitty that is? That like you're getting your paycheck. How fast can I spend this thing before it's worth less? Mm-hmm. Before it's worth a fraction of what it's worth. So now what people are doing basically is they're taking their whole paycheck, they're buying Bitcoin, and then not only, gosh, I forget what the percentages were, but as much as even when Bitcoin went down, people that were buying Bitcoin with their Venezuelan currency, like the Bolivar, I think, I don't know, they were still up like 4,000%. I forget what it was. Even when Bitcoin was crashing, they were still ahead. Now that it's going up, can you imagine how much more they're ahead? Mm-hmm. So people, go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, because I've started tracking a couple of cryptocurrencies, and it seems like they really just follow the dollar in value. You look at the charts, and when the dollar goes up, they go up. So I wondered if that's true with all cryptocurrencies, at least in the United States, and if that's different with foreign currencies, like you were saying.
Sure. So it's interesting to watch a variety of metrics that things seem to follow. I'd say it's far more common to watch the other cryptocurrencies follow Bitcoin's movement than anything else. Bitcoin goes up, most things tend to go up. Bitcoin goes down, most things tend to go down. It's interesting. There's a lot of traders that I follow on Twitter right now that have been clamoring for what's called alt season, where basically alts kind of separate from Bitcoin and do their own thing. And usually when that has happened traditionally in the past, you can make thousands of percent in short amounts of time, holding the right altcoins as opposed to holding Bitcoin. Where it gets tricky is if you don't, like, you can lose a lot against Bitcoin at the wrong times. I don't know. It's a dicey situation. I think it's definitely, in my mind, my opinion, my unprofessional financial advice is to focus on a few good projects that you feel really good about. And that way you don't have to try to track everything, because there's a lot. Like when things were blowing up in cryptocurrency, it was going, like we got over 1,000 cryptocurrencies. And so, the vast majority of them were cash grabs. They were filling niches that nobody's looking for solutions for. But there are some really good projects out there with really good development teams, with really good communities around them. So, finding things that you truly believe in, that you can see a future for, watching, especially if you're a U.S. citizen, watching how the SEC is regulating things, or the whichever regulatory board is trying to take control at that particular point in time. And then lastly, kind of tying into that regulation, is I don't trade it really anymore. Tax-wise, it's no bueno to buy something and hold it for less than a year, because if you do, then you're getting hit with short-term capital gains, because the IRS sees cryptocurrency as property right now. So you're getting hit with short-term capital gains on something. And so if you, I don't know, depending on how much you hold and how much you sell, you could be putting yourself into a higher tax bracket, at which point those cryptocurrency gains are also going to be taxed at that particular tax rate. Whereas if you can hold on to it for more than a year, changes things dramatically. You're getting, instead of like potentially a 40% tax on your crypto gains, which could be crypto to crypto trades, not just crypto to fiat, like Bitcoin to US dollar, but it could be like Bitcoin to Ethereum. Sorry if that is confusing.
So if you trade Bitcoin to Ethereum or Bitcoin,
that's a taxable event right now.
We're talking, that would be also capital gains.
That's capital gains. Yep. I mean, it could be losses too, capital losses as well.
Well, it's always capital gains, but the difference between short term and long term.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yep. So, and the difference between long term and short term is gigantic. I mean, you're looking at 10% maybe. I mean, or 0%. If that's the benefit of long-term capital gains. It could be 0%. And you understand how people become rich and then stay rich. They're not doing the short-term trading stuff necessarily, unless they're doing it with algorithms and high-frequency trading. They are buying stuff and holding assets, enjoying that that 0% tax rate. I forget, what was it, Mitt Romney, like when they were showing what tax rate he was paying, and it was like 7%, maybe it was 15%, I forget what it was. That's because he's not paying income tax level stuff on the money he's making. He's paying long-term capital gains, which changes the game for everybody.
Just one question: would you point people in a direction to?
Oh, goodness. It depends greatly on where you're at. Speaking for the United States, Coinbase is still kind of a standard. If you're in New York, Gemini is a solid option. Gemini was started by the Winklevoss twins of Facebook fame back in the day, which makes Facebook's release of Libra, or pending release of their cryptocurrency, Libra. That's kind of a fun jab, Libra and Gemini. But which I guess I probably should have mentioned. Facebook's Libra being kind of a large factor right now on, kind of weighing over the cryptoverse, in the sense that, they were getting ready to release their currency, and Congress sent them a letter, said, hey, how about you go ahead and stop that? And we're going to go ahead and have you come in and chat with us. This is a matter of national security. So I forget how the saying goes. It was like, first they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win, or something like that. I think it might be missing a step. But the idea that like this went from something laughable to national security threat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, we should have talked about the Area 51.
Oh,
That's going on right now. Has anyone looked into that?
I have not bought plane tickets.
I did mark interested on the Facebook group because I wanted to see what the news was on it. So I am marked in the numbers.
Were they going to storm there or something? Is that what you're
just interested, not going. Just interested.
I'm going to see you or interested.
Gosh, this event has spurned some top tier memes.
When is it supposed to schedule to happen? September?
20th or 21st?
They said everybody that's trying to do that is not that well in the know. That's not the right place to go anyway.
Marine laughs in 50 caliber. They can't stop all of us.
Well, actually.
I am super curious to see what the news is and how this actually plays out. And I mean, people are going to show up.
Oh, totally.
So it's just, how serious people get. You can start taking bets.
Well, I mean, going back to our original talk about the media coverage, like I'm super curious to see what do they
how the
show?
military spins that.
If there's 500 people that show up, are they like zooming in on that 500, making it
right
an ocean of a million people?
I think it would be the opposite, honestly, because
and it's a non-story that doesn't get any clicks.
I know, but I think I'm not going to say what I think. I'm curious because this all came about because of Joe Rogan's interview, right, with that one dude, or is it coming from something else?
I mean, Bob Lazar.
Because
I think it's just a piece.
It's a piece, but is he going to see any repercussions for that? Because
I mean, he specifically went out and said, "Don't go." And then Bob came out and said, "Hey, there's no aliens at Area 51. Last I checked, there was some stuff at S2 or something like that.
40 years ago,
there was a spacecraft there, but who knows? That was 30 years ago. That could have changed."
Yeah. He even said in the interview, he said that there wasn't anything at Area 51. It was some other black site.
Well, there's definitely not anything there now. Now that they're planning on this insurrection uprising outside their gate, which I just pulled.
I have like tour guides, like right this way.
I just pulled up the numbers on the group, and 1.4 million people have marked interested. 2 million have marked that they're going.
Well, and it goes back to our previous conversation of, manipulation of that information and how many people are like, I'm just doing it to be part of the crowd, but not really doing it, and
7/8 of them.
So, full disclosure, back in 2008, I went to work for a company called EC3, which was a combination of EG&G and Cortez 3, who used to run Area 51. And I was like, can I get a transfer? Because that was clearance level work that I was doing there. And not that I had the clearance, I would get into that. But I was like, maybe I could do something. Let's move to Las Vegas. What's up?
That clearly didn't happen.
Did not happen.
Shucks.
So you say.
That's true.
Is that what they told you to tell everybody?
No. Yes.
He doesn't remember what they told him.
Last thing I remember is this red light. It was big on.
We do have friends that the military did testing on without their prior knowledge, and military does that kind of stuff.
Why do they know about it is the question.
Because they got a lawsuit.
There's a lawsuit against them for testing medication on.
Yeah, it's
Oh my goodness, dude!
testing medication
my good
on
friend
kids.
when he was a kid. The military psychologist was testing drugs on the kids.
The military family kids?
Yeah.
That's pretty wild. I haven't heard that. But I do know. Like,
and they got $10,000 for it.
Wow, so rich.
Did he have any physical elements
Yeah.
from it?
Well, it was in the early days of ADHD drugs, but he didn't have ADHD.
Does he have it now?
Why they got? Huh?
Does he have
No,
it
now
now?
he has Tourette's.
oh shit!
Oh my
Wow.
word.
That swear word was not intentional, but it works with Tourette's.
His was more. Now Tourette's takes different forms. His wasn't verbal. It was basically a twitch.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. I just know I count my lucky stars from my time in the military. When I deployed, typically everybody had to have the anthrax vaccine, the untested anthrax vaccine. I found out on a Monday that I was leaving Friday. So it's a multiple staged shot that it's required that you have before you go at the time. My service medical record book says I got it.
Wow.
I did not get it. So,
You mean
You got it right after that red light.
think you got it?
I
Right?
mean, like, and it's one that you would definitely know because it leaves a nice little
Nasty
scab,
scar.
and then like it has to heal up, and they give you a shot. It's like a 3 series shot, I think. But the super sad part about this is, and again, I'm not a doctor, but I know friends who got it, and I out of the military people I know, it seems like a disproportionate amount of them have lupus.
Wow.
One of which I know who died. Like, and so you begin to wonder, like, untested vaccine, lupus-like symptoms, like how could
What could go wrong? You realize there's no federal regulations for vaccines.
Really?
Yeah, there's the average drug to go out because it's considered a preventative medicine. It's not considered a drug. So
not
the
treating.
rules for vaccines are almost non-existent.
That explains so much.
There is a speech by, I want to say it's the only Kennedy left. And he does, and he has a speech that he goes just wails on the pharmaceutical industry and vaccines, and he gives you all these facts. And I read it. Somebody posted the transcript on Facebook, and at least according to that speech, that like the vaccine for the HPV vaccine, like was only tested for like 8 days on like 200 people.
I just pulled it up, dude. That was the one I was going to next.
So I can't remember which. Anyway, just that vaccines don't have the same regulations, if any. So they can put out however freaking many vaccines they want, and then at the same time it still gets regulated with schools and stuff. And so it's essentially all of the income with none of the consequences for pharmaceutical industries, because
So weird how we keep having more and more vaccines.
it's almost like they're intentionally shoving 140 different shots now in a kid by the time he's
It's
6.
crazy.
Well, it's not necessarily shots, but it's vaccines included in those shots. So you can have multiple vaccines.
Right.
per shot. So
Right.
it was like, well, I get 140. Well,
Which is even worse.
shot is not. It's not a 1-to-1 kind of situation. And the HPV vaccine is as unproven as it is, as far as like side effects and whatnot, has been added to the schedule for to the recommended schedule for kids. And so,
And it's like before the age. It's like before the age of 9.
it's 11 and 12 is what I'm.
Like-
It's at least for the boys one that I'm looking at right now.
Whatever happened to
Yeah, there was a
don't
boy.
have sex or use a condom? Like, why do you guys
That would
I thought that
That's
HPV
silly.
was supposed to be for
Speaking of the Epstein
Who can-
trials,
But kind of. On a really interesting note, so I think all of us Americans here kind of got this idea that the tetanus shot is super good for rusty nail, stepping on a rusty nail. Like I just did an interesting bit of research and found out that like it's not like the odds of you getting vaccine damage versus getting any kind of tetanus issue is like way worse than the side of getting the shot, which I just got recently.
I was gonna say, did you do that after or before you get the shot?
Right? I had a physical until I was like, oh yeah, well, I'm pretty sure I'm due. Let's do this thing. Like I didn't even think twice about it.
that's why I love it when they say you need to get your flu shot. Side effects might include getting the flu.
Yeah. Literally.
Gosh.
That's what my dad.
Tell you what, I'll just see if I get the flu, and then
Right?
we'll deal with
Chances
it.
are you're gonna get the flu shot, but then you're gonna get the flu with a different strain. What?
Right.
Yep.
I understand there's lots of strains and stuff, but like, why? Why put that in your body? Like, your body's been created to do all these fabulous things and to
Mhm.
fight off antibodies and to make you survive. Like, let it do a thing. Let it do it.
We should do an episode on vaccines.
We should do an episode on
Didn't we
vaccine.
do one? I feel like
We have talked about it a little bit.
covered it
came
in
up another
conspiracy, maybe?
conversation.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think the conspiracy one, but I gotta be honest, it's one of those subjects that I haven't truly researched the pros and cons, or the good side and the bad side. So it is one of those subjects. Every time it comes up, I hate being one of those guys. That's like, conspiracy, no supporting evidence or information. Because I do, although I'm a major conspiracy theorist, I try to be as factual as I can and not just, but I will say for me, it's what I do know about the pharmaceutical industries, the food industries, and it's just like, there's zero doubt in my mind that there's a lot of bullcrap inside the vaccine discussion. It's just a matter of how much bullcrap and where does it belong. But anyway,
definitely, I wrote it down for our next planning discussion.
Right on. Well, to keep things moving along here, I definitely want to get to the nuns.
Yeah, me too.
The nuns. So this is NONES, or the unaffiliated. So I came across this term this week. I don't even remember how I found it, but this happens to be the fastest growing religious or non-religious, the fastest group of people growing across the world, actually. And these are people who, when you're filling out a form and you have to select your religion, it can be Christianity, Buddhism, Catholicism, or you can select none. And that this group of people that are selecting none is the fastest growing group in the world right now. Some statistics are that about 1 in 3 people claim no religion, versus in the baby boomers generation, it was about 1 in 20. So we went from a very religious, very religiously identified culture to now people are moving away from that. And I think part of what's that?
I was going to ask a question, but you keep going.
So what we're finding is that individualism is becoming a really big thing. People want to be individual, but we're still group oriented. We still want our tribe. So people want to be individuals, but they can't find a group that meets all of their needs. Mm-hmm. So now there's actually a group forming around that concept. And I looked at YouTube videos, especially in Great Britain. They're actually starting like church services for the nuns. Gracious. And it's kind of more like TED Talks, but it gives people a place to express themselves, to meet new people. But it brings up a lot of questions. Right now, the primary focus of these nuns group is they're atheists. They're anti-God. And the people that are proponents of the nun group, they don't want it to be that, because the idea of being atheist is being against something. So right now the movement is moving towards what are we about? And I think a lot of that is individual freedom, individual expression. And a lot of them are moving away from the religious background that they grew up with.
Sounds like religious libertarianism.
Right.
Exactly.
Tell one of them they're religious, though.
Huh?
Tell one of them they're religious, though. Shut up, I'm not.
I'm curious if they were to sub out the word religious with spirituality, how that would jive with people differently.
I think that's a remotely softer word. Like
to me, they're completely two different. Like they're not even the same ballpark.
But I think people respond, much differently to religion than they do to spirituality.
Definitely.
That's very true. And that's in some of the statistics I was looking at, is that if you poll most of them, they will identify as spiritual, very much so, but not religious. And I think it's getting away from the
dogma
restrictions, that they were brought up with. And a lot of them mention science, that, religion just doesn't make sense. Or it doesn't match up with their political views, or, all these things. So they're just getting away and literally building their own group. But they are very spiritual. It's very important to this whole group of people.
Spiritual, but not with God. So
religious.
Well, but
some of them believe in God. And that's the thing, is about half of them actually believe in God. But they
they're atheists. So then I was like, well, how's that?
Yeah, it's about 50-50. By definition, it's a very vague group, but
sure.
I feel like I could be one of this group members. Yeah. None. Sorry, I'm a nun.
That's why I started New Age Christianity, was because there was, we all know there's so many of the people we know and love that just can no longer call themselves Christian. but they're certainly not going to call themselves, Muslim or Buddhist or, whatever. And so it's been this, if you listen to the NAC podcast, I have so many episodes, and one of them, I have a recurring episode interview with a New Age Christian in which the entire discussion is, how do you define this? What is this? What is it to be one of these people? Why does it matter to have a label? Why does it? Because there is a human, we need community. We need identity. We hate labels, and yet if we don't have them, we search for them. Right? Like, I don't box me in. Where's my
none?
Right?
Where's my box?
Yeah, I finally have a label that I can identify. No, what it is don't call me something I don't want to be called. Call me something I want to be called. It's no different than we had the discussion. It used to be, Negroes, and it was blacks, and now it's African Americans. It's like, don't give me the name I don't want, but I do want a name. And I do want an identity. I do want to be known as something. And so it is. So NAC is just an adventures in trying to answer that question, and it sounds like this is as well. And it's. I think you probably end up have this coalescing around kind of a nebulous non-identity is what it is, and then that will split, and people will start new spiritual identities will begin to blossom out of this age, including things like New Age Christianity. And so a lot of people who are especially ones who were former Christian, will probably then gravitate towards an identity. I don't know if it'll be called New Age Christianity or whatever, but humanity is begging for an identity, and there will be a label given to it somewhere. I think calling myself a New Age Christian is as good of a label as anything else. It kind of does fit who I am, and that's why I call myself that. And the website was built so that over time people would go, well, what is that? Well, go to the website, go to newagechristianity.org and find out. Because labels and boxes can be useful. If I told you I was a Muslim, you would immediately be able to put some framework around my beliefs, my perspectives on life. And sure, you could probably be a little bit prejudiced if you wanted to, but it's a double-edged sword when you have a label. And I don't think nones or nuns will be it doesn't feel like a label that will survive the heart cry of what it is to be, to have one. And I think right now our society is kind of in that, like, don't label me, don't try to fence me in. But at the same time, they're all going, I'm a non, because we all want to be fenced in and labeled. But eventually you're going to find that you're in this group with people that are completely not like you. Yeah. And by and large, you're going to eventually want to work your way towards people that are like you. That's just how we're tribal by nature. We're community driven by nature. So I see it as a very palpable, tangible sign of the age. But I also see it's only a step along the journey. I don't feel like it's a sustainable title that will fulfill what people are looking for. Could be wrong, but I have spent a lot of time pontificating and researching and thinking around the value of being a part of a community. And I get it. And there's a lot of people that don't know which community they belong in. That's just kind of where we're at right now with the ages, especially with the internet and the proliferation of ideas and all that.
I'm curious if, like, the atheists are, like, thinking, for the spiritual people that are involved, like, hey, just go to the Unitarian Church then. Like, you go to the Universalists. Right. I don't know. It's a tough place to. And
that's exactly it. So I'm in this group that half of you don't even want me here. That's not sustainable. Right?
Well, they're in their own group. Why do they have to join that group? I digress.
I do think it will subdivide, because right now, the term is coming up because you have to select Catholic, Protestant, or Buddhist, and the fourth option is none. So people are selecting that, but yeah, it's lumping in people who are starkly atheist with people that believe in God. There's a major difference there. So I do think they're going to start weeding themselves out. And I don't know, it's kind of going the way of gender, to be honest.
I was thinking the same thing.
That people are picking their own categories and there's going to be 50 boxes for everything. Or I don't know, maybe those subgroups will join forces. And I don't know, it'd be really interesting, but it seems like across the board in many different areas of life, this is where people are going, that they want to be individuals and want to be heard and understood and find like-minded people, and we're trying to figure out how to do that.
I think if you had an option called other,
I was just gonna say
that you would have the others.
The
that.
others.
Would you want to be an other out of curiosity?
Yes.
I still am.
You're
I'm
not
New Age
normal.
Christian.
You're other.
Yeah, I am.
The other term that I found is they call them the unaffiliated. So if you go to like the Pew Research is where I was looking up a lot of my statistics. If you go to the pewforum.org and look up the unaffiliated, you'll get a lot of their statistics.
Well, I wonder at what point we're just going to stop checking so many boxes. Like, could be a point where we're not trying to, because I mean, it is like the more diverse things are, it's going to be a little bit ridiculous.
I just filled out an application for local school system, and I was like, I have to put myself in all these boxes so that you guys can feel good about demographics.
Yeah. Right?
I've kind of gotten difficult, and I stopped doing that because don't put me in a box. I'm that person.
Well, it's funny because it's like not what it wasn't like. What are you? It's like how do you identify? So.
But see, no, Jen.
It's a product of where we live.
I'm so with you. But you were like earlier when Joni was talking about the nuns. You were like, I could be a part of this group.
I'm all over the place. Well, I think in this context, just the geographical location in which we live, because we've lived kind of all over the place, but they're very hypersensitive to who you are, what you call yourself, what's your background, and to the point where I've been in meetings and trainings and I'm like, I feel like I'm getting white shamed right now. And I don't like that feeling whatsoever because
while uncomfortable, sorry.
While it's an injustice to whomever was feeling that pressure, the pendulum's going to go the other way, and that's not going to solve the problem. We're just going to keep continuing this hurtful stage until we say, "Hey, we're all humans. We're all in this together." I feel like a Disney song.
Well,
you know what I'm talking about, Tina?
Yeah.
No.
You
All in.
Yep.
okay.
Copyright infringement.
Yeah.
Take it back. I don't know what you're talking about.
So, Team Tico and Tina, did you guys want to fight over which? I think with time-wise, we should probably just hit one more topic.
Yeah, just do your.
Mine's shorter, so you can go with mine, I guess.
Do it.
So I don't know. It was a long time ago I ran across something about this, and I don't remember how or what. But these kinds of things intrigue me. I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with some of the Lost City type stuff, but I grew up in the Midwest largely, and I didn't know that there was one in Western Illinois.
There's a lost city in Western Illinois.
Is this like Las Vegas?
I think like Iowa's a lost city, right?
I don't know. So apparently it was once home to America's largest prehistoric population, Cahokia, America's first great city. The archaeological data indicates that the site came into existence around 800 AD and flourished for around 500 years. So they have this, the largest, what's it called? I don't know. It's called Monk's Mound, and the base covers over 14 acres and stands 100 feet high. They figured that there was a building at the top that was over 104 feet long and 48 feet wide. And then they had a fortress wall around it that was 2 miles long. And they even had they call Woodhenge, which was their version of Stonehenge, essentially, to be able to track time and whatnot. And I don't know, I found this very interesting. They estimated that at its peak, which was around 1100 AD, it had 20,000 to 40,000 citizens there. And so, I don't know, it's just stuff like that you just don't know about, and it's weird considering. And I mean, you can see video of it and everything. It's just weird considering how living in the Midwest and not even knowing anything about that.
Well, it's because lost cities are always supposed to be like over there, like
right,
far away, not. In
when we got here, there was nothing here.
Yeah,
North America, there was no.
No, it was just empty, and we just took over and started a completely new thing. So,
Well, and the Indians definitely were never that, like, they never had all that stuff figured out, right? Like,
Andy, what?
so what is this group that had this big city? Was it Native American or was it something different?
Indigenous peoples, you mean?
Well, yeah, they would say, I
Sorry.
think they would say, yeah, Native American, indigenous, I don't know what you want to call it, but they think that would have been the case. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the stories that we've been told, largely, you have the impression that there's a bunch of huts or something, you know?
They were just little teepees and little groups that moved around. And
yeah, but apparently there were big civilizations. Then another thing along similar lines, as far as like weird stuff, have you ever heard of the underground city that's supposedly in the Grand Canyon? They found, this was articles in papers,
like
back
in the like the caves in the walls.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Ancient aliens.
Well, isn't it the same with the Mayans? They had like secret underground stuff. No, okay.
I don't know. I had seen it a while ago, but I forgot about it, and that's made me, the whole thing with Illinois made me remember it and go look it up again. And so the details are that someone mining for gold, essentially, but they couldn't say that back at that time because they weren't supposed to be doing that, I guess. I don't know, minerals. They found an underground city with long passageways connecting hundreds of rooms. Then they estimated that 50,000 people could have lived there. They found all sorts of Oriental artifacts, including a big Buddha statue, and then there were other rooms with Egyptian artifacts, some mummies, and all that kind of stuff. So, like,
What?
Just the concept that the stuff that we've been taught is so limited and potentially very, very different than what really happened. Oh, and one other thing that I thought was really interesting, I don't know, I didn't try to validate this, but someone was saying that the city in Illinois, or some of the lost city concept in that area, somehow fit with some of the Joseph Smith stuff that he talked about in his stuff. So that's interesting to think about, you know. So I don't know, Joseph Smith, the Mormon founder, if you don't recognize that.
I think a really interesting read, I mentioned it in a previous podcast, or that may not have aired yet, so in a future podcast, telling the future right now, is a book, 1491 by Charles C. Mann? Yeah, Charles C. Mann. And he really gets into not just basically an alternative history to what you've heard, but kind of gets into the reasons why history is dictated as it is from anthropological and archaeological perspective. Really cool stuff. And it gets into some definitely interesting stuff here in the United States prior to the Columbus era, the America era. So
America.
Anybody else want to hop in on that, or we should get to products?
You new products. Am I going first? Is that how it goes?
Get it, girl.
All right. I've got a supplement that has helped me out a lot. By my preference, I'm not a doctor, so don't take this as professional advice. You can get it off the interwebs, so take that for what it is. I think I've mentioned before that I have had some issues with my thyroid, but not with my lab work, and so just trying to figure out what my physical symptoms were. So I'd been taking selenium for a while because that helps with your thyroid. And then, so I kind of just Googled something different, and I found thyroid active complex. So that's what it looks like. Good old Dr. Emil?
Dr.
Emil. He designed the formula. It says that it helps metabolism, energy, and focus. It doesn't do any of that for me, but it does help me a lot with like my depression and my feelings and my mental health. And so this is the one that I just ordered another one because it's been really helpful for me in those areas. So yeah, that's my product.
Cool.
And I can't. There you go. That's my product.
There you go. Cool. So I'll hop in next. I've got a product that is a childhood favorite of mine. I had a friend named Tony and his brother Henry. They had one of these, and we would play on this thing from the time that we were small lads to the time after we graduated from high school. And then I bought one for my kids because I'm a kid. And it's simply a balance board. So this makes a lot more sense if you can imagine, or if you can see it. But it's basically, it's a wood, piece of wood with like a little beam on the bottom. And then there's a wooden log that goes in with a groove that goes into that. And it's a balance board. And you can spin around on these things. You can rock back and forth, work your core, work your balance. I thought it would be a fun Christmas present for the kids. That's why I picked it up, and I've used the heck out of it. So,
Merry Christmas, kids!
Right? Watch me! I can do it. I'm so good at this. And then this one was kind of fun too, and then it had a little bumper that you could kind of not just go right into the hardcore kind of rolling on the log bit, but you could slide this thing on there and rock side to side, or depending how you put it, back and forth, kind of like training wheels, if you will. And a really accessible way to get into balance boards, and it translates, I think, exceptionally well. If you've ever been skateboarding or snowboarding or boarding of some sort, when it's your off season, when you come back to the season, you feel like you're like a newborn deer or something sometimes. And that first time you're on, like, oh my god! So it's a way to stay on a board, keep that kind of coordination going. And it's just a ton of fun. The reason I'm highlighting this particular board is because I'm super satisfied with the purchase. There were a lot of options, and I did a ton of freaking research on it, and came to the conclusion that for the price point, this was the one I wanted. I love it. Yeah, and the kids have a good time on it too. And the fun thing is, it's not just our kids. Whenever kids come over to the house, they see it and they're like, "I'm getting on this thing." And so
it's like a magnet,
right?
Like
sign a waiver or something.
Right. So we keep it on the carpet for the most part. Whereas, back in the '90s, it was cool, or actually in the '80s too, it was cool to just be in my friend's concrete basement, and we just took headers into the wall and whatnot. But with the litigious society nowadays, maybe it's better to keep it on your carpet. But it's a good time. I highly, highly recommend it for you and your kids. Have fun. That's part of life.
Did you just call me litigious?
No.
Mom,
let me talk to my lawyer.
So for me, I don't know. I feel like I've mentioned it before, and I'm just reminded of it every time I get one of their emails. But this isn't necessarily a specific product as much as a product outlet called AppSumo.
Ooh.
For anybody who listens to this and does any sort of online content production, you have any sort of, whether it's a WordPress website, a Shopify website, even if you don't just do website, if you do stuff on social media, you should check out, and I know they have affiliate links, so we can check out the link in the show notes, but I saw another email from them today of a product that I highly considered getting. I've gotten a lot of their stuff, and they come out with basically lifetime deals for different tech products that are, some of them are pretty insane. They even have freebies. They have different tools available for social media, for WordPress sites, for marketing and stuff like that. So yeah, if you are doing any sort of online anything business-wise, you should become a member of AppSumo and get to them through our affiliate link and help us out. We highly appreciate it. But I use them a lot. I know Tico and Tina do as well, and it's a crazy good service.
So my product, for those of you that know me, I am a major straw person, and I have to have a straw with all my drinks. And this whole trend of getting away from straws is not a good thing for me. Look, everyone's got their reusable cups, so I'm a big fan of reusable cups. I always have my Starbucks cup with me. But a lot of the restaurants I'm finding that you're going to, they're doing this whole paper straw trend, which I am not a fan of. I hate paper straws. They're not the answer. They're not the problem.
Straws aren't even the problem.
They aren't even the problem. So I hate this trend. But something that I have found that I've kept in my purse is they make these reusable silicone straws that literally fold into fourths, and you have a nice little carrying case that come with a nice little cleaning tool. But I've literally kept this in my purse, and you can pull it out when you're at a restaurant and they give you a crappy paper straw. Take it out, throw it away, use my reusable one, and it solves a lot of my problems being a straw person. So we'll have links to the reusable personal straw.
Cool. And you're cool with cleaning it?
Yeah, I don't mind cleaning it. I just can't stand the paper, and I have to have a straw. I won't even drink my drink if there's no straw.
Oh, that's cool, because I mean that's been like a big barrier for me. Is like Jen shows you those straws, and I'm like, we get some of them, like, how am I gonna clean inside this thing?
That's because we do like fruit smoothies with the kids.
Yeah.
No, those
don't do that.
You have to clean those. But if you're just doing like
Does it go
water,
in the dishwasher?
That's a good question. I would think so. It's metal. It actually has a metal outside, and it folds together and has a silicone inside. So I would imagine it does.
I can vouch the straw thing's a problem.
It's a problem.
You drink beer through a straw. Yes.
There you go.
Straw.
I see what you mean.
I think
I'm the same way, though. I don't.
Straw is hard liquor.
Yeah, because the straws are too big. If I have straws that fit the glass,
Get a little stir stick.
Straws,
The little like red ones.
And I use, yeah. See, I'm such a big straw person. I actually thought about writing a book on this, on the height of the straw versus the cup, the style of the straw for the drink. I mean, this is
the
a big
integrity of the straw
versus what you're drinking. The wrapper, you can't have the plastic wrappers because those don't come off. So
the truth around the straw, the Great Straw Live 2018.
Yes.
QAnon's take on straws. Yeah.
It's a conspiracy.
All right. Well, my product is something we talked about, I think, on the last mostly monthly, around smelling bad. I've tried out a lot of different natural deodorants, and David's tried some of them. Doesn't like as many of them. I don't know. I have tried a lot of ones that I don't like the consistency because they're sloppy, because they're made out of coconut oil and stuff like that, and they're just not fun to apply. This one I actually like. Well, why is our thing backwards and theirs wasn't?
You're good. You're good.
It looks good.
Oh, okay, it just looks bad for us. Sam's Natural is the brand, and they have like 17 different scents. And I got patchouli. David got
tobacco.
Whoa.
Manly scent.
It's not as tobacco-y as.
Yeah, it's
you
not.
would
It's not
think.
super strong. But anyway, it's working
is
well for you so
campfire.
far.
Yeah, it's all right. It's working.
Yeah.
Well.
I like the consistency. Oh, here, I'll show you how it looks.
And it's purely deodorant, not antiperspirant, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, I assume it's not, because the stuff that makes the antiperspirant is A, bad for you, B, toxic. I guess that's the same thing.
It's bad for you and it's
And it will
toxic.
kill you.
No, yeah, but it has the one thing. At least I thought that it did. Now I'm not seeing it. I was thinking maybe that it had what's it called, baking soda, but no, I think it has arrowroot powder instead. No, maybe. Anyway, is sodium bicarbonate baking soda? Yes.
Baking soda.
It does have baking soda, which can be an irritant. I haven't found any sort of problem with it, but some people I know do. So, other than that, though, I really like it, and I think that's probably why the consistency is better, is because of that
Nice.
baking soda. But in any
I'm
case,
personally gonna check it out. That's an issue I've had too. So
Amazon, and actually, it's a good price for these kind of deodorants. A lot of deodorants, well, at least on Amazon, a lot of them are like
Pricey.
$12, $15, whatever. This is like under 10, so not bad. David, you don't have anything else, right?
So let's go back a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and I was at a coffee shop, and I decided to buy this metal mug.
you do have something.
And I was so happy because obviously, if you're at a coffee shop, then the mugs that you would get would be amazing. Because it's a coffee shop and you buy coffee and you get a mug there. So you would think it's great.
I said it was stupid.
It was a piece of crap.
From the beginning, I said.
It was one of those mugs that if your coffee was too hot and you would put the lid on, then the coffee would start spewing out of the lid. And then it had a ridge around the top where it had a the plastic handle had a ring that it was attached to, that it came up in there so crap could get inside of the in between the plastic and the mug itself. So it was toxic.
It's a horrible design.
It was terrible. And then it broke, and then it was a piece of crap, and I hated it. So I recently got this thing.
You mean I got it for you?
Christina got it for me. It's an SLM?
It's
SM?
all the things that the other one wasn't.
And it has a great lid. It's like what are they? The Yeti cups? Are they?
Mm.
Yeah, right?
Sure.
Yeah. A Yeti cup lid, and it keeps my coffee very, very hot, and it's great.
And it came
And
with a
I
straw.
love it.
And it's pretty.
Nice.
Oh, it came
Nice.
with a straw? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Where is it?
You
Feel my straw?
No?
What's the price point on that? Because I know, like, I just saw a meme. It's like, I'm white, but I'm not $300 Yeti cooler white.
I want to say it was like 15.
Yeah, and the other mug was a smaller mug than this,
Yeah, this is a good size.
and it was like $25.
Mm.
And this is like $10 cheaper and just way better quality. There are not so many moving parts, etc. I mean, it's great.
Stellar.
Love it.
He should always let me pick his products is basically what he's saying. The end.
Cool. Well, I think that wraps up mostly monthly for us.
Mostly.
Mostly. Yeah, mostly.
It mostly wraps it up.
Mostly. They come out at night. Mostly. That said, all these products, if you were to to go to our webpage and click on the links there, they'll take you right to the product. We're getting a little bit of that. It's helping keep the show going. So if you've got a hankering to pick up one of these, please do. Please use the link. Helps us out a ton. And you can check out our other shows. You can check us out on social media at Epic Ideas. You can check out our Patreon account if you just want to throw that cash straight to us. We really appreciate it. We've been working this thing for a while. It's a passion project. We love it. But man, it'd be nice to make a dime or two. So thanks for listening. You made it this far. Thanks for going the distance with us and enjoying these conversations worth having. Take care.